Hi everyone, welcome to another Slav video. In this one, we are going to start digging into the Botvinnik variation into the main line or very close to the main line. Let's start seeing our initial position again. d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, e6, bishop g5, pawn takes c4, e4, b5, e5, h6, bishop h4, g5, knight takes g5, pawn takes knight, bishop takes g5, knight bd7, pawn takes f6. Bishop b7. I quite believe that we've covered almost all other major possibilities for black, and here we are at the main line. g3. The very main position is after c5, d5, and here there are many possibilities. The main one is queen b6, knight b6 is also possible, knight takes f6, but we will have plenty of time and lots of variations to deal with those. Another interesting idea here is play immediately queen b6, bishop g2, long castle, castle. And now after c5, which is a line which we are going to see, white can play d5 and transpose, but black has several possibilities to divert from the main line. That's why it's first important to cover all the side possibilities before we reach and start analyzing the main possibilities. Actually, bishop h6 is the main move that I want to focus on today. But there are two other interesting possibilities here. The first one is actually playing knight e5 right away. Knight e5 was played by no other than Botvinnik in his first match against Smyslov for the World Championship in 1954. Smyslov played queen e2 here, which, as we will see, white has better possibility than that. That game followed queen takes d4, bishop e3, queen d3, rook fd1, queen takes queen, rook takes, rook, king takes, knight takes c2, knight d3, b3, with a complicated position, but it was almost equal all the time, and the game actually ended in a draw on move 41. Going back to move 15 after knight e5, as I said, that was the game played more than half a century ago. But today, it seems that the best reply for white, and again, quite a basic idea in that position, just giving the queen away. Pawn takes knight, rook takes queen, and here there are two possibilities. You can either take with the f rook or with the a rook. I mean, both of them seems quite okay. Let's first see the old move that was played in 93. Rook f take d1, b4, knight e4. So, after knight e4, c5, a3, bishop d5, takes on b4. It's very important for white to try and open the files on the queen side once black king is on c8. We saw that idea in many of the lines. And now after queen b7, black is trying to put some pressure here, and obviously f3 is a very bad move for white, blocking the position. But white has the very powerful move. Rook takes bishop. After pawn take rook, obviously queen takes, he is losing immediately to knight d6 check, and the queen is under attack. And after pawn takes rooks, knight c3. Again, a usual Botvinnik position. White has two minor pieces and right now two pawns, but what pawns? He has 5 pawns on the queen side. Cut the board at this moment, at this place. 5 pawns versus the f7 one. He has an open a file and the g2 bishop is quite a monster. After c takes b4, knight takes d5, white won in a game between Alexis Cordoba against Morovic Fernandez in Spain 93. So this is one possibility, and it just seems to be fine for white. Another possibility, taking with the other rook, was actually played in a correspondence game, which I have to tell you, my philosophy, or at least I like correspondence games very, very much. You can see two correspondence players which you haven't heard before or don't know their rating, their name. Most likely, the quality of their opening play is going to be like a super strong grandmaster. So that's why I'm showing the other possibility as well. Rook A takes d1. c5 was played in that correspondence game, although b4 is another major possibility, was played by Yarmolinsky in a game we'll see soon. After c5, bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop, rook f to e1, b4, knight e4, queen c7, bishop f4, rook g8, rook c1. This position, I wouldn't say, white is clearly better and it's very simple, but white has better chances here, and white actually won that game, a game between Gesset against Diani, correspondence game in 1992-2002. So both lines seem possible, but let's go again and see, instead of c5, b4 was actually played. B4 was actually played on a board game. White played knight e4. And here there are a few possibilities. Let's start first of all with c5, bishop f4, a5, rook d2, a4, rook fd1, bishop d5. And here I'll let you have some time to think for yourself, or whoever wants what's white's next move. Okay, if you paid some attention just 3 minutes ago, then rook takes bishop was played. Pawn takes rook, knight g5, d4, knight takes f7. Now white has 4 passing pawns, or 4.5. Rook g8, bishop h3, king b7, e6, and white is completely winning in a game between Shabalov against Amur Hazban in Philadelphia 2000. Philadelphia 1998. That idea of taking on d5 we already saw in 2 games by strong players. Just breaking the pawn structure, and the bishop in some position is way more valuable than the rook. So that was c5 possibility on move 17. Let's follow another game between Yarmolinsky and Kaidanov, and there followed queen a5, bishop f4, c3, c3. Don't know what I'm having today with c5 and c3. Pawn take pawn, bishop a6, pawn take pawn, bishop takes b4, and here a very important move, a3. We see this in many lines, either a3 to take a pawn on b4, or just a3 to open the file, and white was just very easily, clearly better after bishop takes a3, rook f, e1, a game that Yarmolinsky won in Long Beach 1993. So after 95, as a conclusion, we saw 3-4 games. The best reply for white seems to sacrifice his queen, take on e5. After rook takes rook, white can either take with the f1 and then try to play on the a file, or we can also take with the other one, which was played by Shabalov, by Armolinsky, so it's definitely a serious line to consider, maybe even better than rook f takes. It just seems like this is not really playable for black, or playable, but white should be better there according to at least theory so far. So that was one interesting possibility playing knight e5 without c5. Another possibility is playing c5 right away. So as we said, white can play d5 here, which will transpose to the main line, but white has also other alternatives if you want. He can take on c5 immediately, trying to punish black for playing that move order. After take on c5, knight takes c5 is the main move. Bishop takes c5 was tried, but in an old game, but it seems that after queen e2, rook dg8, I'm following that game. Bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop, knight e4, queen d5, rook f d1, and actually the game was bishop d4, which is a bad move. Rook takes bishop, queen takes rook, rook d1, and white is actually winning. Yuferov against Timoshenko in Moscow, 1981. So going back to move 15, knight takes c5 is the main move, and rightfully so. Knight takes c5, queen e2. Taking on b7 right away is quite dangerous. I don't like this move so much. Black can just take with his queen. Now he has his queen on the diagonal. Queen e2. And now just bishop d6, and black is going to play rook here, b4. Actually, right now the black threat is to take on h2, threatening mate, so white has to play that move. But now just this, and rook to g8 with incredibly strong attack or initiative for black. So queen e2 is the move that should be played right away. And here there are two possibilities, either bishop h6 immediately, or bishop takes bishop, and then maybe either queen c6 or bishop h6. Let's focus first on bishop h6. I think that here white should take on b7. That's why I actually think that bishop takes bishop is a better possibility for black. And here both possibilities seems to be good for white. If king take, knight e4, knight d3, b3, again white is trying to open either the c or the b file. Queen c6, take on c4, pawn takes c4, queen e3, take on g5, knight takes g5, rook d7, rook f d1, with a very big advantage for white in a game between Bariev and Vasquez in 2005 Russia, a game that white won very quickly. After queen take, going back to that position, after queen take b7, if queen e3, black has only one move, and that's bishop f8, because white was threatening here and taking the knight with a check. But here, despite the fact that it seems very weird, black had to play bishop f8 back, black will try to play here knight to d3, and then move his bishop to c5, and white queen might come under some pressure. So in that position I might consider just take, queen e3, attacking both, rook h5, and rook f d1 with a better position for white. So considering all that, I think that bishop h6 is just simply a wrong way to play. So bishop take g2 is our main line. King take bishop. And here there are two moves, either queen c6 or bishop h6. I think bishop h6 deserves more attention, so let's first focus on queen c6, f3, bishop h6, bishop take bishop, rook takes bishop. And here two moves are possible. For example, a4 immediately, b4, knight b5, king b7 and rook a d1 with advantage for white. Mansint against Thierry 1990, or a more recent game where white played on move 20, knight e4, rook dh8, h4, rook g6, knight take knight, queen takes knight, queen e4, and after king c7, a4. Again, opening files on the queen's Indian. I'll say it over and over because it's such an important idea for white. Maybe one of his basic ideas when black's king is on c7. White was clearly better in Fedorov against Kaspersky 1995. Alrighty, so going back to our main line again, which is bishop h6 right away, no check, keeping the queen there. This was played in a very interesting game between Tiemann against Tal. It's actually a very funny game. This game has a very funny spot that I'll like to show you. Tiemann played h4, Tal took on g5, take, queen c6, f3, rook h5, a4, b4. Both players, Tiemann and Tal, quite like those positions. Big mess, unclear, lots of play. And here, again, what I just said about 10 minutes ago regarding correspondence chess. This game between Tiemann and Tal, definitely two of the greatest players, in the 20th century, was played in 1988. Tal was way past his top, but still a 2600 plus player. Tiemann was one of the top 10 players in the world. They played here king b7. Well, let's just follow the game between Tiemann and Tal. King b7, rook a d1, knight d3, queen e3, attacking here, queen b6. Black is not afraid so much exchanging queens since he's going to have pawn majority on the queen side and his pawns are very dangerous. Queen e4 check, king b8, g4, rook h4. And here, b3 is possible for white, or g6. I think white should be better in that position. But in that game, and I'm going quite deep, but it's just amazing, a very nice example. Tiemann played king g3, which is a big blunder. I'll just show you how the game followed. Tal played rook here, rook dh8, rook takes knight, pawn take, queen e5, king a8, another check, king goes back, just trying to gain time on the clock, make another move, queen e5, king a8, and g6. And with black has many checks, but there are no more than checks. White king is going to be secure on f4, and one of the pass pawn is going to bring something close to a victory. So that was how this game went. But let's go back to move 27, because it's really a very beautiful idea and example. After king g3, which is a big blunder, how can black win here? For whoever has the power and the energy to try and solve it, I strongly suggest just pause that position and try your best. Alright, if you had played here rook h1, then you understand or you saw more than tal, because after rook h1, white is just losing. The rook cannot be taken because of a simple mate threat. King h3, rook h8. And if rook takes d3, rook takes knight, then rook g1 first, take, and queen take, and winning. So, it's quite funny, but it can happen also to the best players. Alrighty, but going back to move 22. Again, in a correspondent game, played about 10 years after that game. That game was played in 1988. The correspondence game was 1999. Black played queen d5 novelty. And black is just better here. After rook a d1, knight d3, queen e3, just take on g5 with a big advantage. In the game, actually, white played rook fd1, black played knight d3 and won quite fast. This is a game between Hassa and Masia, 1999. So, first of all, another proof or show why I'm such a great lover, if I can call it this way, with correspondence chess. Usually, no many mistakes, and opening preparations can reach the very best in the world. But going back to our line, maybe following that line, c5 and knight takes c5, especially with that new move queen d5 on move 22, which we just saw, black can play that. I'm going back to move 14. So if white doesn't want to play the position that we just saw, which seems playable for black, he can obviously play d5 and go transpose to the main line. So, another major possibility is playing here bishop h6. The best move for white, I think, is simply taking on h6. But there are some other possibilities. For example, h4 was played several times. Bishop takes bishop, pawn takes, and here c5. Again, knight e5 was played, but now we already know the idea that it's very possible to take the knight, rook takes queen, and rook f takes, and white is better. The game played in 2000 in Lisbon. c5 was played between quite strong players. The game followed d5, b4, knight a4. And here black best move is queen b5. With an unclear position, maybe white is slightly better here. I actually prefer white. But in the game, queen d6 was played. Black is Dominica's almost 2700 player. And why is queen d6 such a big blunder? His opponent, a British grandmaster, Mr. Chris Ward, played a3. But what should he have played here? Again, take on e6, and after queen takes pawn, I think that both players missed. Take, king takes bishop, and oops, queen takes d7. And you have to take this way, knight takes c5, with somewhere between big advantage to winning advantage for white. Well, winning advantage is 2 pawns up. And it's quite surprising that in the Botvinnik line, those ideas are very basic ideas, sacrificing and trying to improve pieces placement. So the game was a3, which is quite a poor move considering that beautiful possibility. And after bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, pawn take, we got the usual mess, and the game actually ended with a draw on move 42. This game was played in Copenhagen 2002. So h4 seems to be at least interesting possibility. Another possibility after bishop h6 on move 15 for white is to play bishop e3. This was played by quite strong players. We can follow some ideas here. It was actually played by, if you count Ivanchuk and Kramnik as strong players, so yes, it was played by them. So bishop e3 was played, and here c5 is one possibility. Take on c5, knight take, bishop takes knight, queen takes bishop, bishop takes bishop, king takes, queen f3. My feeling is that this position is better for white, or should be, but it's obviously very complicated and deserves very deep analysis. I mean, queen c6, knight e4, rook d4, rook fe1, rook h d8. And here in a game between two young, strong Dutch grandmasters in 2005, white played rook e2. Sorry, white played in that game. Yes, he played rook e2. The interesting thing is that several years ago, Ivanchuk played h4, also against, at that time, I think, the top Dutch player, Mr. Piquet. And the game followed rook 8 to d5, rook e2, a5, rook a1, b4, and king h2. A game that Ivanchuk won. The interesting is why white diverted, why it played something tiny bit different. Because this h4 seems good for white. Maybe he found something, or maybe he thought that h4 is a better try. I'm sorry, let's rook h d8. So in our game, white played immediately rook e2, rook 8 to d5, same idea in principle, a3, a5, and h4. Actually, they got very similar position in a different move order, exactly the same position. He just played rook e2 before. This is a game between Werla against Laami in 2005. So c5 is a possibility that seems to give white the advantage, just taking on c5, exchanging all the pieces, or at least two pair of pieces, and being with a pawn up. Another possibility is knight takes f6 on move 15, queen f3, bishop takes bishop, bishop g7 was played, but white is just clearly better after a4, c5, take on c5, bishop takes queen, pawn takes queen, take on g2, king takes g2, b4, and pawn take a7, again between two Russian grandmaster, Gavrikov against Bagirov in 1984. So white here played a new move. I have to tell you that the game that we are going to watch, bishop take e3, was actually played in a blitz game, but I'm showing it because the players are Kramnik and Lautier, and even in a blitz game, it's important, or it's wise to see what they play. Kramnik played a4, a6, queen f4, rook d, h8, g4, and here Lautier played rook g6, and after h3, white is just better. Kramnik won that game. A better possibility for black actually might be to play c5 right away. But again, this is more to show the idea. I think it's not very wise to analyze very deep a blitz game right here. If someone likes this idea, it's for sure you can try and take it further. So we saw so far two interesting ideas. Bishop e3, which was played by two strong Dutch grandmasters, and Ivanchuk Piquet in 1999, Vic and Z. And we saw also Kramnik play this, although it was a blitz game. Another interesting move is just playing knight e4 right away. Here it seems that c5, bishop takes bishop, rook takes bishop is quite a must. And here white has two possibilities. White can either play queen d2 or queen f3. I don't think that queen f3 gives white much. Several moves were played here. Knight takes f6 was played in a game between Nielsen Peter against Ornstein in Gatswell 1999. Also bishop, but white should be better after knight takes f6. Probably just queen f4 is okay for initiative. In that game, white actually took on c5. Black played here, bishop takes knight. And here, I think that white played well, white was also better the way he played. White took, and after take, pawn takes c6, a4, white is better. I think that even a better possibility might be immediately to take. Because after knight take queen, this is just over. I'm either going to take here or here. So black has to play queen c7, but here queen a8, king here. When white is just a pawn up and black king is under some pressure. So this was, that's why I don't pay much attention to knight f6. I don't think it's a right move. Another move that was tried is bishop takes knight, but also here quite same experience. Queen takes bishop, take on d4. If knight takes f6, take here. Very similar, or exactly the same position that we just saw. Different move order. So take on d4. And here a4. Again and again, same idea. Knight c5, queen f4, rook h5, take on b5, rook f5, and here very strong move, queen c1, and white is clearly better. Bilyavsky Pallets, Bled, 1996. But all those are quite sublines, so I'm not paying much attention to them because I think black has a very powerful reply here, and it's actually rook take f6. After knight d6, king c7. Well, if you want to get checkmated in one, then take king c7, queen takes, and here what to do? There's nothing better than king takes knight, but black has some massive pawns so far to protect his king and some decent initiative. In the game, white took here, which I think is wrong. I think rook f d1 is a better try. Anyway, white took on c5 and black took back. Rook a d1, knight d3. Black has also some pressure here. Queen e4, king e7. When black is quite for sure better, I don't know if slightly or much better, but black position is good here. A game between Van Velde against Piquet in Vic and Z, 1999. By the way, it's exactly the same tournament that Piquet had his game against Ivanchuk in this line. Actually, when thinking about this, many Dutch players are playing this line with black and white. Van Velde, Piquet, all the young ones. Just interesting to think about it. So anyway, as a conclusion, after rook takes f6, it seems that black is just absolutely fine here. That's why I don't think queen f3 is a good possibility. By the way, actually, Van Velde managed to win that game against Piquet, but his position wasn't good. Queen d2 is quite a better try for white. And here, rook h5 is our main move. Rook dh8 is also possible. Sorry, rook h to h8 is also possible. But here, well, a4 I assume should be the white main try. Bishop takes bishop. Sorry, bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop. Pawn takes d4, takes on pawn takes b5, knight c5, queen f4, queen c7. White very rightfully avoids exchanging the queens and leaving the knight and the bishop on the board. Play queen f3, which is an important move. Knight takes bishop, queen take, queen b7. And actually here, if you just play any move, like for example, let's assume this move, I think that this is just big trouble for white. So here white is forced to exchange queen, but again, he's doing it in the best way. Queen c6 check. Not immediately taking on b7 and improving black's king position. And white is slightly better. Popov against Korniev, 1997. So, going back to move 17, our main move is rook h5, which was played between two very strong players. Especially black is not stronger than white, but has a very deep theoretical preparation, so looking and seeing what he's playing is important. Rook h5, queen f4, bishop takes e4. And here in a game between Luboyevich against Lautier, Monte Carlo 2000, Luboyevich took on e4, believing very much in his attack or initiative, but he just found out that after c takes d4, his position is not good. a4, knight takes f6. Black is now actually a pawn up and has big pawn center, very powerful pawn center, and white cannot really get through. For example, check, just king c7, and you have to go back. Rook a5, and the pawns will start rolling in the center. In the game, after knight takes f6, Luboyevich played a5, but after queen c7, black is just winning. So, queen e4 is ambitious move, but a bad one. A better try is taking immediately on c5. Knight takes c5, bishop takes e4, rook d4. Another possibility was maybe queen c7 instead of rook d4. Queen f3. Just notice that there's a little trick. Bishop b7, check and... oh, sorry, this goes here. Check and attacking the king on c8, just losing to knight takes c8, and suddenly the queen is protecting here. So white's best move is queen f3, escaping the pin and taking h5, rook e5, bishop h7, with a very complicated position. Rogozenko against Kwekion, 1998. So as a summary, it seems that after bishop h6 there are four moves. One of them is bishop takes bishop, and the others are either h4, bishop e3, which, at least according to what we saw, both of them seems to be okay for white, give white a slightly better game. Knight e4, at least according to that game and theory in this line, maybe black has the easiest way to try and equalize or get an unclear position. Alright, so after bishop h6, bishop takes bishop, rook takes, and queen d2. And here, black again has two possibilities, either to play rook h8 or rook g6. After rook h to h8, queen f4, c5. Queen c7 was also played, but after queen f3, rook h6, knight e4, white was just king b8, and b3, white is just better. Take, a game between Jimchi and Senev in 2000. Going back to c5. Bishop takes bishop, queen takes, knight e4, threatening this unpleasant move, queen c7, And here just take, pawn takes c5, with a very big advantage for white. Henkin against Richter, 1999. Just notice that, for example, in this position, knight e6 was also possible, but king b8 and take. It looks like it's a great deal, but this is just really wrong. Queen take, check, and black getting his counterplay in that position. So Henkin tried to avoid that, just solidly winning the c5 pawn and transposing into a big advantage in the endgame. So, after rook h8, queen f4 seems to be quite good for white. Rook g6, rook a d1, knight takes f6, queen f4, queen c7, and here again few possibilities. Let's first of all see the old game, or so-called old, just 8 years old. Queen e5, rook h6, h4, rook g8, rook e1, a5, a4, attacking those pawns, b4 and knight e4, with a big advantage for white. Savchenko against this name is really going to be a challenge. Solodovinchenko, 1999, sorry. A more recent game, after queen c7, white simply exchanged queens. King takes queen, f4, knight g4, f5. Black took on f5. I think that rook h6 is definitely deserve serious attention. Black might be quite okay here. So that's why I'm quite surprised why Laami decided to play something else. At least queen e5 proved to give white a decent advantage, and yet in this game this young Dutch grandmaster diverted and played queen take queen on immediately. But alright, in the game his opponent took on f5, rook takes f5, and here another so-so move from black. He played knight e3, but as we will see, it's not a very good move, I think. Rook d7 has to be preferred here. After knight e3, white just took on f7, king b6, rook d2, take, on g2, king take g2, rook g d6, if c5, white has d5. So rook c d6, and here h4, and white is slightly better. Laami against Okes, 2003. So, to conclude all this main line that we saw, main alternative, let's go quickly to move 11 and just try to follow right here. After bishop b7, g3, c5 is the main line, queen b6 can transpose several times. The other possibilities, queen b6, bishop g2, castle, castle, and here we saw c5, we can either choose d5 to transpose, which might be best for white. D takes c5 was quite okay for black. Knight e5, we should just sacrifice the queen. It's not really a sacrifice, just give the queen for the rook and knight, and white should be slightly better. And after bishop h6, it seems that white has few interesting possibilities, either bishop e3 right away, or h4, also take, and queen d2. I really, if I were a white player playing this line, I would just need to pick up a line that I really want to play, because it seems that few of them are giving white an easy, comfortable game. So I don't really know what black has to try and improve here, but this line, those lines should just be quite okay for white. On our next videos, we will start with the c5 lines, and knight takes f6, knight b6, sorry, that is knight e5, which is also possible, knight b6, and many other lines. So you better wait patiently for that. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you with the other lines. Thank you very much. Bye.